et rêves sont mes repères. Mon journal n'a pas de date. Mon journal n'a pas de chiffres. Mon journal n'a pas de nombre. Mon journal n'a pas de calendrier. Mon journal mal quadrillé. Un rap, un rap jazz. Je dis ma ville, je redis ma ville, je chante ma ville, je danse ma ville, je contredanse ma ville. Et alors, que pourrais-je écrire que l'on ne sache déjà? Que devrais-je dire que l'on ait déjà entendu? J'écoute ma voix baroque dans le miroir enflé de litanies sauvages. Batteur battant aux appels de ma ville, rappeur frappeur à l'ivresse de mes tripes. Je délire et je tangue au fracas de ma langue, à mes roues cyclonneuses. Je rappe, je dérape au zigzag de mes mots à dentelle d'ouragan. Mes paysages écrabouillés au tournoiement du vent. Danse, contredanse, coïncidence et connivence. Mes affres et mes balafres. Mes joies, mes vertiges au tressaillement du masque. Mon ombre écarte les d'oubli et d'épouvante au milieu des décombres.
Hello and welcome. It's a very great pleasure to introduce Frankétienne, Mark Mulholland, and their performance tonight of Cacophonie, which is going to transport you to Port-au-Prince, capital city of Haiti. Franketienne is one of the greatest poets writing in the French language today, and he's a major figure of La Francophonie, because we're in the Fête de la Francophonie, the festival of the wider French-speaking world and its culture. He's been Nobel Prize candidate for literature several years running, UNESCO Artist for Peace in 2010, among many other distinctions. And Frankétienne is the Caribbean Renaissance man. He's a one-man cultural phenomenon. He's a polymath, he's a great writer of poetry, prose, plays, and he's one of Haiti's most important visual artists too. Haiti is often portrayed as bad news, and certainly Haiti has had more than its fair share of misfortunes. Extreme poverty, the earthquake of 12th January 2010, in which more than 200,000 people died, yearly hurricanes, extreme deforestation with disastrous consequences, cholera introduced by UN peacekeeping troops, dictatorships, and other countries meddling in Haitian affairs. Haiti has, it's true, suffered enormously, but Frankétienne's work also helps to challenge recent media treatment of Haiti as if it were a completely helpless country, and as if its past, prior to the ground zero of the 2010 earthquake, were some kind of blank slate. Instead, Haiti's fierce independence ever since Haiti won its independence through fierce fighting, the only successful slave revolution 1791 to 1804, is reflected in Franketienne's fiercely independent and unusual work. And in addition to Haiti's long historical tradition of independence and anti-colonial resistance, his work also shows us Haitian cultural resistance and creativity in action. One truism often repeated about Haiti is that it's a country which is economically, materially extremely poor, but culturally extremely rich.
Mes amours me reviennent.
Here we are, Glasgow. The show's just finished. We were with Mark Mulholland, who was this evening launching Cacophonie. And is that a real word?
No, it's one of the many words. One of the many words that Franketienne has invented.
So, and we'll introduce Franketienne, who is the collaborator on the album with Mark, and was, to my experience anyway, the standout track on the last album, Mark, which was the Waiting for the Storm album with you and Craig, Craig Ward, which did so well and so many people have been talking about. Now, so is that where the inspiration for doing this album with Frankétienne?
The reaction that when myself and Craig decided to put the song with Franketienne on the last album, we weren't quite sure how that was going to go down, how it was going to work, and especially for audiences that don't necessarily speak French or Creole.
D'utopie et de tendre violence, quand je mange mes silences qui me démangent, je m'en vertige à contempler ma vie.
During the dictatorship of the Duvaliers,
the
majority of the other writers and artists who were against the regime went into exile in Canada and France.
So he toughed it out, did he?
He stayed. He didn't leave. He didn't set foot outside the country until he was 51. And,
so did his notoriety save him? Would that be the case?
To some extent, and also
because there was horrific things happened.
Absolutely, yeah. But he was well known, but also. That I think that's partly where some of the sort of complexity of his work comes from. Is that to be able to criticize the regime, you had to veil it in all sorts of allegory and illusion, which people would understand, but it wasn't specific enough that
they could actually hook into him. And
some of his, particularly his plays, in which he performed as well. Were very popular, particularly since a lot of the population is illiterate. The play, the format of the play, the theatre allows you to reach the whole population.
It's like Shakespeare.
Yeah, exactly.
In the Tudor times.
Yeah, and some of his plays, like there's one called Penantet, were credited with having been a factor in leading to the revolution that brought down Dr. Duvalier in 1982.
Ma ville couchée, ma ville agenouillée, ma ville redebout, ma ville tombée, ma ville tremblée, hors des vestiges de l'ombre.
So how does he get on with the powers to be at the moment?
Well, the president, Michel Martelly, is an admirer of his. So,
right.
He's to a certain extent a sort of personification of problems.
Of the problems and the joy, and which all came out in the performance tonight. I have to say, he went from at points being the frail oldish man that he is. I mean, he was sat in a bundle before he started, and then when he got onto the lectern, he became a bear in places, and then retired back into this.
Yeah, and there's a very sort of childish joy as well.
That came over really well. Let's look at the album, which is beautifully packaged, I have to say, and it's got some of his artwork, and we're talking about him being an artist. There we are, there's the artwork, and Mark and Frankétienne, and the album is here, and the track listing is there. You didn't perform it in order tonight?
More or less. There are some things that have been added in, and there's always going to be random digressions that take it in often different.
Je nage, je surnage, inépuisable. Je suis d'une ville, ma ville, ta ville, notre ville. Je suis de Port-au-Prince, ma ville enfouraillée de nuits intarissables. Ma ville schizophonique.
The first one has a kind of French musette chanson kind of feel with like accordion and a sort of repeated melody.
And is he introducing us to the music in this? Me being a non-French speaker, I wouldn't know.
Well, all of the text in this album is taken from a book of poetry that Frankétienne wrote published in 1999, which was the 250th anniversary of the founding of Port-au-Prince.
And that came about through.
It's kind of like a hymn or a love song.
Yeah.
To Port-au-Prince. It's all about the city.
And that came about with the only ever successful slave revolution. Is that? Am I right in that?
Yeah. It started as a continuation of the French Revolution.
Yeah.
But
it did.
And the slaves kind of took this liberté, égalité, fraternity thing. Like they thought that this applied to black folks as well.
And, of course. Why wouldn't it? Yeah.
But Napoleon thought differently. And it was actually Napoleon's first major defeat. Napoleon actually sold Louisiana to the Americans to finance his campaign to retake Saint-Domingue, as it was known in those days.
I didn't know that.
And reintroduce slavery, but he lost. The Haitian former slave armies actually defeated the French, the British, and the Spanish at the height of the colonial.
How about his work? Does he relate back to those times in your album, or is it more contemporary?
It's more contemporary. It's about Port-au-Prince today.
Yeah.
With all the energy.
I was getting a lot of the pain of the earthquake. Coming through.
But there's that. But and there's also, there were plenty of problems before the earthquake as well, which haven't gone away either. But the text in the album it talks about Port-au-Prince with all the problems, but also the beauty and the vitality of the place and the people in it.
Yeah.
Schizophrénique, ma ville bavarde, ma ville infatigable.
And your music, blues based, but I'm starting to hear some Haitian music coming through your playing now as well. Does he understand the blues?
It was quite a conscious decision that Frank has done quite a lot of projects with music in the performances, but it was always traditional Haitian music. And he particularly wanted to try something with a completely different feel to it, which is why I went for sort of blues, rock.
Yeah.
The folk elements are kind of Celtic folk.
Was that an education for him, or was he tuned into what you were doing anyway?
He liked the energy, and we kind of bounced things.
Is that
off
where you met? Do you think at that point where you liked his energy and he liked your energy?
There's a sort of chaotic symbiosis going on there.
Yeah, and I have to say the dynamics both between you as performers, but in the music, and how you were allowing him the space to do his rants, and then he would allow you the space.
This is the good thing, is that we each have our defined space. Like the words is his department, and the music is mine, and we can.
Yeah, but you're sympathetic to each other.
Yeah.
And the music's sympathetic to what he's doing, of course, because you're accompanying him.
And sometimes I'll go off on something and he'll follow me, and sometimes he'll go off on something.
So he'll follow you. He'll follow you lyrically as well.
It's kind of like a jam.
It's a fantastic piece of work, Mark. You're very.
Thanks a lot, Rob.
You are to be congratulated, and you always come back with something just a bit different every time. That string band that you had,
$2 bash.
The $2 bash was great fun. And it took you all around the world, didn't it?
Even to Ullapool, were you?
Well, yes,
and various other places in North Scotland.
and every time we see you, there's always something really interesting going on. Nothing more interesting than this, I have to say. And congratulations on introducing a great man to an area that might not have been aware of how important a character he is.
Yeah,
really.
and my dad has a gallery in
Of course,
Glasgow,
yeah.
and we're plotting, and he's become a great fan of Haiti. Like since he came out at Christmas, he's coming back next month.
Is he? Oh, great.
And we're plotting
And you put
various ways to try and foster more connections between Scotland and Haiti.
And he introduced him to Alistair Gray, so the two of them are getting on like a house on fire.
That was a spectacular evening last night.
Yes, and a stroke of genius on your dad's part, I think.
Indeed. The two of them, there's so many parallels between them that they had to meet.
And there's a documentary coming out about Franketienne as well, so it's coming into the English realm now, isn't it? Yeah. And well, good luck with all of this, and I'm sure the album's going to go down a storm with everybody.
Great.
It's been a delight. Thank you very much, Matt.
Thank you, Rob.
Généreusement offert cette salle qui paraît petite, mais qui pendant plus d'une heure a été d'une immensité démesurée. Avec vos regards, vos silences, vos rires, vos sourires. Je dis merci à Rachel Douglas qui, quelque part, est l'auteur de ma présence ici, aussi bien que je le dis avec affection, le vieux Joe Mulholland, qui a tout fait pour qu'il y ait ce mariage hier soir, parce que vous le savez, je suis androgyne, je ne sais pas si je suis femme, je suis homme, femelle ou mâle. J'ai été avec votre grand écrivain, Alistair Gray, et ça a été un couple formidable. Je dis merci à tous les autres, merci à Steve, merci à Craig, merci à tous les autres, puisque je n'ai pas les noms. Vous constatez que pendant la prestation, il y a eu beaucoup de déchirements, de déchirures au fond de moi, parce que vraiment, je m'accroche à la ville de Port-au-Prince, je m'accroche à Haïti, tout en laissant des portes, pas une seule, des portes ouvertes où j'accueille tous les autres, mes frères, où ici je me suis senti chez moi. Et en jouant pour vous, j'ai joué pour tous les Écossais, j'ai joué pour le Royaume-Uni, j'ai joué pour les Anglais, pour les Français. Pour ceux-là qui ne peuvent pas entrer dans cette petite salle, la vie est ainsi faite. Ce n'est pas nous qui avons créé toutes ces différences, toutes ces dissidences. For the last time, I tell you this, all my heart. Very thank you. Ma ville bavarde, ma ville infatigable.